Welcome back, guys. This is the Buffalo Breakdown. Today is going to be a little bit of a special episode. We have Jack joining us, and as you guys know, Jack is here. He's been here. I think we're on a streak, Jack. Is this 4 or 5? I don't know.
4
straight
Jack.
in a row.
All I'm saying is Colorado passed some laws that gave squatters even more rights, so expect to see me for a while.
So he's just going to be here, whether you guys like it or not, is essentially how this works. We also have David joining us today. He's going to be our Kansas representative over from the SB Nation group over there. So, David, we are going to be shooting you a bunch of questions today, all of them positive. We are scared of Kansas. We are not feeling super confident about this game. So, there's going to be no trashing Kansas, despite the fact that that's probably what the audience wants us to do.
We'll be respectful. This isn't Nebraska.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I'll let you know up front. Both my parents went to Nebraska. I was raised a Husker fan, so they're kind of my secondary team. So I apologize in advance for that.
Yeah. There's a lot of history that goes back, but the trauma from Nebraska is actually more recent with how that game turned out. Ryland and I made the commute, like a 7-hour drive there, just to watch.
It was a nightmare. It was awful.
Yeah, that was the worst game of the season. We're not going to see another one like that, I hope. But I will say,
I'm not getting ahead of the horse. We could definitely see something like that.
No, a loss to Kansas by 1 would be just as devastating as the loss to Nebraska by 18 or whatever it was. So, okay, Ryland, how do you want to start this off? Do we want to jump right into questions, or
we can jump right into questions? Okay, I guess my first and most pressing question, just to get things started, is what do Colorado fans need to know about this Kansas Jayhawks team?
I would say what jumps out to me is don't judge us by our record. 4 and 6. I mean, we earned those losses, but at the same time, 5 out of the 6 were 1-possession games. And in all 5 of those, Kansas had a lead in the fourth quarter. There were definitely miscues in those games, but some of those were just kind of luck in how it played out. And there's an alternate universe where Kansas is probably 8-2 right now, where just a few bounces just go the other way in some of those games. So yeah, I mean, we're fighting for bowl eligibility at this point. We finally seem to got rid of those demons where we can't win a 1-score game. Finally beating, winning the last couple of weeks, being Iowa State and BYU. But I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you Kansas is really a top 10 team or anything like that. We're definitely not. But I wouldn't just look at 4 and 6 and say, this team's terrible, because those were games we easily could have, and some of them probably should have won. So, we're not that bad, I guess is what I'm saying.
If I did my math right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, all 10 games Kansas had a lead in the fourth quarter. Is that correct this year?
Yeah, the TCU game is the only one we lost by more than 1 possession. If we didn't lead in the fourth quarter in that one, we definitely led in the third. But in every if we did have a lead in the fourth quarter in the TCU game, then yeah, every game that we've lost, we led in the fourth quarter. And even most of those, we led with just a few minutes left and just saw the other team, pick up yards and chunks and put us away with a late drive that didn't leave us enough time to come back. So yeah, they've been close, and for a while it seemed like we were just doomed to lose every game by 3 and walk away feeling like we should have won. Things have finally kind of turned around these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you guys are hot. Like, this is a hot team. You guys are finally starting to figure it out. Jalen Daniels isn't turning the ball over like a machine anymore. You're fresh off a win at night in Provo. That's not easy to do against the best team, or the number 1 team in the Big 12, the highest ranked in the conference. How scared should Colorado fans be of Kansas? Because I know I'm personally horrified of this game. This is not a game that I am looking forward to the Buffs playing. This is some CU stuff would be losing this game and missing out of the conference championship game. So just how scared should CU fans be of this Kansas team?
Well, last I saw, the point spread's only 3. So it wouldn't even be a huge upset if KU were to pull it off. I would say I don't know about scared, but at least being nervous is warranted. Jalen Daniels is starting to look more like the Jalen Daniels who was preseason Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year last year before he got hurt. I think that back injury that kept him out the last 9 games of last year, it took a while to shake the rust off and kind of get back into rhythm, but he's starting to look more and more like the Jalen Daniels that was turning heads the last couple of years when he was healthy. And I also, fans were not real impressed, with good reason, with Jeff Grimes' play calling early in the season. We hired him as offensive coordinator in the offseason after he had stops at Baylor and BYU. Neither one worked out real well. But I feel like he's kind of found a play calling groove where he's, I think a lot of fans would like to see him use Devin Neal a little bit more than he does, but we aren't seeing early in the season, we were seeing lots of bubble screens. It seemed like most of the passing game was going to be horizontal rather than vertical, and it just wasn't working. But I think he's kind of figured out what he's got and how to use it quite a bit more here in recent weeks. So yeah, you're from your perspective, you're catching us at the wrong time. If I'm the other team, I would much rather have seen us early in the year when it just seemed like we couldn't get out of our own way. So I don't. You are the favorites for a reason, but I think it's probably warranted to be at least a little nervous about this one going in.
And I have to do this. I have to plug for Colorado history, because if I don't do it, then who will? But longtime suffering fans of the Buffs will remember the last time that Colorado played Kansas in football was 2010. Dan Hawkins, I think, last conference game as CU's head coach.
I was at that game.
Yeah, were you really? Okay, well,
Yep.
You probably liked it a little bit more than I did, because Colorado was up 38-17 heading into the fourth quarter, and then pulled the 2024 Kansas and lost this game 52-45. Because Dan Hawkins was doing whatever it took to get Cody Hawkins the career pass yards and career completion attempts records at Colorado, which meant that there's 0 running the clock out, and Todd Reesing and Mark Mangino at the time in Kansas were just absolutely demolishing CU's defense. So the last time CU played Kansas at Kansas ended up really horribly and lost the head coach's job. So even if separate from 2024 Kansas, you should be very terrified of this game just because of what happened last time.
Hey, well, we're not playing them at Kansas. We're playing them in Kansas City, Jack. This is different. This is very, very different. We're playing them in the state of Missouri.
All I'm saying is when you see a 38-year-old Todd Reesing suit up on Saturday out of nowhere, you should absolutely start live betting Kansas.
I mean, you have a pretty good point there. You did just talk about Devin Neal a little bit, and we've already talked a little bit about Jalen Daniels, but there's just some really high-end talent on this Kansas roster. That's part of the reason that they were picked so high to finish in the Big 12 this season, with those guys and Mello Dotson and Kobe Bryant. Which players on the Kansas roster should CU be keeping an eye out and should be the most scared of?
Well, from what I've looked at, it looks like Colorado's defense is a lot shakier than the offense is. So I would pay attention. KU's got 3 senior wide receivers who are all capable of making huge plays at any time. Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold, and Quentin Skinner. Quentin Skinner seems to come up with a circus catch at least once a game downfield. He's 6'5". He's a big vertical threat. So if Kansas can get the passing game going, you're going to see that trio of senior receivers. They'll be a big part of the game plan. The guys you all mentioned, of course, the two cornerbacks are ones to watch. But I feel like because the ball gets spread around quite a bit, there's no real number one receiver who gets most of the targets. The receiving core doesn't get a lot of attention, but I do think all three of them are capable of beating just about any team, and they're all have great hands, run great routes, and if we just had one of them as a wide receiver one, you'd probably hear about him a lot more. But because the passes get spread out, the targets spread out, they don't put up huge numbers, but they're all very capable.
Yeah, and I mean, you just talked about the Kansas wide receiver core. Colorado has probably one of the best wide receiver cores in the entire country. They run in 4 wide essentially the entire game. They got guys like Will Shepard, LeJontay Wester, Jimmy Horn, and of course Travis Hunter out there passing the ball pretty much the whole game. There's hardly really ever any attempt to even run the ball. Do you think that the Kansas secondary has was what it takes to step up and stop those guys?
I guess I would say the secondary does have what it takes. Kobe Bryant is probably a legitimate All-American level cornerback, and Mello Dotson, has set the Kansas career record for pick sixes. He just always seems to be coming up with big interceptions. But even though the secondary might be capable of holding things down, the problem is the pass rush. Kansas had Austin Booker last year, who kind of surprised everyone by being a breakout star edge rusher. He went to the NFL, got drafted in the 5th round, and Kansas didn't really. They had a great class of incoming freshman edge rushers, but those guys really haven't been ready to step up yet. So the problem is creating pressure on opposing quarterbacks, because no matter how good your corners are, you can't ask them to defend somebody for 5 or 6 seconds at a time. So if Colorado's offensive line holds up, then as good as Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson and safeties like OJ Burrows are, they have a tall task in sticking with those guys for as long as it may take, for Shedeur Sanders to wait for somebody to come open.
So we've talked about Kansas surging. They're 4-6 right now, but they're coming off of 2 back-to-back ranked wins, 46-36 against Iowa State and then 17-14 against BYU. Obviously, the defensive performance is kind of Jekyll and Hyde with those 2 weeks. And you talked about the secondary, which has incredible talent on there. So what did Iowa State do that was so successful against Kansas, or vice versa? What could BYU not do that made Kansas be able to shut them down?
The BYU game was kind of a strange game. They did, at least at times, move the ball pretty well against Kansas. With your strength being the passing game, I think that's probably a good thing. Kansas front 7 has done an okay job against the rush. There have been a few games where they've gotten worn down. Arizona State would be one of those where by the 4th quarter they weren't standing up as well to the run. But the way to beat the Kansas defense, and the offense is a lot better than the defense. There's just a lot more talent on that side of the ball for us. There are usually chunk yards available. As good as our corners are, our defensive coordinator, Brian Borland, usually has them giving a bit of a cushion. And when teams move the ball against Kansas, it's not usually the home run ball over the top or breaking free for a long run. It's usually just, it seems like there's receivers open 10 to 15 yards down the field on every play, and teams just move the ball in chunk yardage. So I think, Iowa State was able to do some of that. Brigham Young or BYU wasn't able to do it as well. I was surprised by that whole BYU game. I'm honestly not sure how we won a defensive battle, because I didn't think this team was even capable of that. But yeah, I think if Shedeur Sanders gets time to throw with that wide receiving talent that you mentioned earlier, I think that's going to be the key to success for Colorado, is just finding that, getting in a rhythm in that intermediate passing game, because that seems to be where things break down for Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, you did talk about the offensive line earlier, and that's a big question in my mind. Can Colorado's offensive line kind of hold up to give Shedeur the time to make throws against those corners. But I guess shifting gears a little bit, you did also talk about Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant will be defending the front runner for the Heisman race for probably the entire game this weekend. Do you think that Kobe Bryant has what it takes to stack up and shut down Travis Hunter?
I don't know that anybody can just shut him down. So no, I would say he's not gonna lock him down, but he's a physical corner. He's a good tackler on top of being a great coverage corner. He's got a great eye for the ball. So I think that'll be the battle to watch. Does he have what it takes to shut him down? I would say no, but could he limit him to what, at least by Travis Hunter's standards, are just an okay game? I think he has the ability to do that. I also think you might see Mello Dotson on him on some select plays. I think Kansas will do whatever they can to keep, because Kobe Bryant's a bit bigger. But I think you might see Mello Dotson on him as well. Dotson's not quite the cover corner that Bryant is. So if they can get that matchup, I think that's going to be a little easier to exploit. But I don't foresee Hunter, having 2 catches for 19 yards or something like that. I mean, I think he's going to get some numbers, but Bryant, I would be surprised if he, goes off for a career game or anything like that.
One thing I love about Kobe Bryant too is he does have that classic DB mentality, I think, of just like pure confidence, which is great. I watched some of him last year and this year too, and it's really fun. I think he really loves when it can just be like mano a mano, man coverage. I'll stick with you the whole time. And I also saw this week that he was talking about how he circled this game before the year as a game he was excited to play for that very reason. So I think no matter what, it'll be really fun to watch, but just want to throw that out there too. It's just fun to watch Kobe Bryant play football, man. He's like exactly what you want your number 1 DB to look like.
Yeah, he's going to be playing on Sundays next year for sure.
Yeah, both Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson are just so fun to watch. Anytime I have a Kansas game on, it looks like Mello Dotson is getting a crazy pick. It kind of seems to me like it's a question of getting them both to play well in tandem. It seems like one plays well and the other doesn't. Is that something that you've kind of observed too, that they're not both firing on all cylinders simultaneously?
There have definitely been some games where, as good as they are, you just kind of have to scratch your head and wonder, why are they 5 yards away from the receiver when he caught the ball? And I don't know if that's a scheming thing or if it's just both of them staying locked in. But yeah, there have definitely been certain games and certain times this year where it does seem like they're not quite playing up to their potential. And part of that may be the expectations are too high, expecting them to be perfect on every play. But I would agree, it does seem like there are times when you're wondering, why was that receiver, when we have corners of that level and that ability, why are their receivers getting open for some of these passes?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. That's one of my biggest things that I was wondering. So I'm glad we got a little insight from that from the Kansas expert. You did kind of talk about earlier how it's been a bit of a disappointing season. 4-6, you guys were expected to finish in the top half or at least the top 5-ish of the Big 12. You guys are still in the running for bowl eligibility. You need to win your next 2 games. If you were to beat the Buffaloes this weekend, do you think that kind of salvages the season, or is it still like a disappointment, kind of sour taste in your mouth type deal?
I think at this point, now that we've seen that Kansas wasn't just doomed to lose every single close game all year, the fans are a lot more excited, especially now that 2 weeks ago, bowl eligibility seemed like it was just out the window because we'd have to beat a number of ranked teams to do it. Now that we've beaten a couple, I think the confidence is coming back. So a win over Colorado would definitely, I think, even further comfort a lot of Kansas fans who early in the season were, as ridiculous as it sounds, like there were fans who were already wanting Lance Leipold on the hot seat after we lost a few games. I was not one of those. I think that was reactionary. But yeah, getting that 5th win over Colorado with a chance to get to a bowl game if we can beat Baylor as well. I think it would go a really long way toward comforting fans that, we got off to a bad start. Some things didn't go our way, but things are still going to be okay, and the future is still bright for the program.
Yeah. And we asked you a lot about, what CU fans should be scared of Kansas. And we talked about how we are scared of Kansas. What are you scared of CU ahead of this game?
I think it's just Shedeur Sanders' ability to sit back in the pocket and patiently wait for the right receiver to come open. I know you mentioned, there have been some questions about the Colorado offensive line. I don't think Kansas is really the team to exploit that. So what scares me is Shedeur Sanders getting time to not only find Travis Hunter, but those other receivers that you mentioned. There are just so many weapons all over the field. In Kansas, with defense being the weaker part of the team, I'm a little worried that Sanders is just going to have his choice of receivers to throw to all game, in which case the offense is going to have to step up and turn it into a shootout and just hope we come out on the right side.
You guys have anything you want to ask before I ask my last most important question?
Or Jack's got something.
No, well, I don't think so. I just, once again, we'll put it on record the last few weeks that I've said this is the last loss that CU has this year. So gotta keep throwing that out there. Hopefully it's a reverse jinx, but I've said that for a while now. Kansas has been very scary, and there's a weird I don't know. It seems like stylistically, when David talks about Kansas, you can really easily imagine that CU is in that exact same boat of offense is a little bit more strong than the defense, and just some weirdness this year. And one team's 8-2, one team's 4-6, right? So I think that to me speaks to the Big 12, where it's just a rock fight every week, and there's not any one team that's far and away better than the other team. And Kansas is peaking at the right time in general. So very scary, and I don't like that very much.
Yeah, that'll do it. The Big 12 is just so weird this year. My last most important question that I just alluded to. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. It's just, the teams that we thought were kind of running away with the conference have started piling up losses now. Iowa State went from looking unbeatable to, they're going to have a rough path to even try and get to the championship game. So, and, like we said earlier, Kansas was picked to finish near the top of the conference. Arizona was picked to finish near the top of the conference. Things just haven't gone the way people expected for most of the teams in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, the conference standings right now looks like if you took the preseason media poll and just flipped it upside down, which is kind of interesting. I mean, we'll take it because we were pretty low on that poll. Now we're tied for first in the conference, which hasn't happened for quite a while. I guess my last question would be, how many Jalen Daniels pooch punts off an opponent's helmet is it going to take for Kansas to beat CU this week?
Well, from what I've seen, Colorado has some issues with special teams, so maybe that's something that we ought to try. Obviously, that was a freak once in a lifetime event, but I'd rather see Daniels running and passing the ball than having to pull off quick trick punts like that. But it was fun having to play in a Kansas football game that made that got national attention the way that one did.
That was crazy. I was at a bar watching it, and I was like, what just happened? That was quite interesting. I think your assessment that CU is pretty poor on special teams is true for the most part. I think that the kickoff unit has been atrocious. Our place kicker tore his ACL, and we have no place kicker right now. So just getting the ball within 5 yards of the end zone has been a struggle at times, which is not great. But the returners have been very good all season. LeJontay Wester and Jimmy Horn, when he's healthy, they've been electric. And then Colton Hood, cornerback, transferred from Auburn. He's been returning kicks for the last 2 weeks, has been doing a pretty good job, had like a 45-yard kick return against Utah last week. But I don't mean to get too in the weeds there. I think it's time for score prediction time. Jack and Jake, I'll let you guys decide who goes first. Where are you going? Who do you think is going to win by how much?
I'll go first because Jack's going to be a party pooper and pick Kansas. So let's start off with some good vibes here. I think CU's scored a lot of points these last few weeks. I kept on picking them in the 20s or 30s. I think they might break 40 again this week. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think, I do think Kansas is going to have some success on offense. I think something like 42, 30, 34. I think it'll be close, maybe within a possession, but I think it'll be high scoring. And I really think those high scoring games can go either way. But take 42, 34, and that's Colorado, by the way. So I'll let Jack ruin our good time here.
Yeah, CU there was no world where it was just a win and you're in scenario that worked out, right? Kansas is very scary. CU's played a few different running quarterbacks this year. Cam Miller from North Dakota State is the one that reminds me the most of Jalen Daniels, but there have been others too. And more than Jalen Daniels' running ability moving forward, his escape ability terrifies me too. CU has a pretty good defensive line for sacks, but Jalen Daniels is also impossible to sack. So I don't think we're going to be able to rely on the same negative plays that have helped us so much in the prior 3 weeks. All of that meaning that Jalen Daniels will do just enough to make sure that the defensive line can't get to him. And then, as David mentioned, it's hard to cover for 5 seconds no matter who you are, and no one puts more pressure on a defense like that than Jalen Daniels does. So with him peaking right now with a 3-point spread, I will take Kansas to cover and win, and I'll go 35-31 Kansas.
Fair. I think I'll go 38-35 Colorado. This is kind of a homer pick, but I don't really care. I'm going to do it anyways. Jalen Daniels horrifies me. His running ability specifically horrifies me. I think the Cam Miller comparison is an extremely good one. We even saw Sawyer Robertson kind of use his legs and burn us quite a bit when Baylor played us. Devin Neal also scares me a lot. CU's done pretty good against the run game, especially recently, but Devin Neal is going to be sneakily one of the best running backs that this team faces all season long. You could probably put him up in DJ Giddens territory. He's just really good. I do think that just CU's passing game is gonna be too much for Kansas to handle. I think that it's gonna be hard to defend against Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson, and I'm assuming that they'll probably be on Travis and Will Shepherd for most of the game. So I think LeJontay and Jimmy Horn are gonna probably have extremely efficient games, especially as just chain movers on those short 5 to 10 yard little across the field slant routes. And I think that CU might actually have success running the ball. I think that the Kansas front seven has been suspect at best. And Isaiah Augustev will be able to get what he needs on the ground. I'm not expecting a breakout game or a 100-yard game or anything, but when he's called upon to get 3 or 4 yards, I think he'll be able to pick them up. I think it's going to be a shootout, but CU wins by 3. They don't cover the spread. But oh well, a win's a win nonetheless. What do you think, David?
Well, I'm not going to make the homer pick. I'm kind of a pessimist by nature. Like I said earlier, I just worry about Colorado just moving the ball in chunks each time they get it. Just first down after first down. I think Colorado is as equipped as any team in the conference to do that to Kansas. At the same time, I think Kansas offense is too good for this to be a blowout. I don't see it being a lopsided Colorado win. But I think Kansas will move the ball. They'll score some points. But at the end of the day, there's just so much talent on that Colorado offense, and the Kansas defense has been spotty at best for most of the year. I think absent some turnover luck, maybe going KU's way, I think Colorado does win this one, the semi-home game for Kansas. I don't think that'll be enough to put them over the top. So I'll say Colorado 34-27.
Okay, I would take that. I'd take that. I mean, CU covers.
All right, we heard it. We didn't have to play the game. We're good.
No, we're good.
27. We're all happy with that. Let's just skip to next week.
I'm cool with it. Oh, I guess we got recruiting news. Carday Smith is decommitted from USC. Not super shocking. We'll touch on that in a bit later. But do we want to do player of the game predictions? We can just do one, if that's cool this week, offense or defense. I'll circle back to either Jack or Jake on that.
Well, I would say guess first. Let's go with David's player of the game.
That's true.
I'm gonna say Shedeur Sanders. I think this is a matchup where he could just rack up a lot of yards on good efficiency, and just kind of nickel and dime Kansas to death by picking up 5, 10, 15 yards a play. Like I said, I don't think Travis Hunter will go have a crazy game with Kobe Bryant covering him, but I think Sanders is probably going to find his receivers and find windows to get them the ball and probably put up some pretty solid numbers.
That was a good answer. I think Shedeur Sanders is the right answer. I think he kind of holds the key to a Colorado win, which is kind of always the truth. But like the only way I think the Colorado offense, or the only times that they've looked kind of stagnant in the past, has been when Shedeur Sanders has turned the ball over. He does have the occasional errant throw that soars over the guy's head or misreads a coverage. So. I think that's a pretty good answer. I'm actually going to agree with Jameer in the chat. I think LeJohntay Wester is probably my pick. Ryland's pissed off. I think I take his pick every single week.
You do take my pick every week. Every single week you take.
and I know for a fact. And here's Ryland's reasoning as well. Kansas has some bigger defensive backs. They're going to match up well, and Travis Hunter and Will Shepherd are going to be the priority for those guys. LeJohntay Wester. Well, yes, LeJohntay Wester is going to have a big game. Is Jimmy Horn healthy?
We'll see. We have to see how good he's running on Friday, is what Dion said.
If Jimmy Horn plays, I would expect Jimmy Horn to go over 100 yards. I think they'll force feed Jimmy Horn. They want Jimmy Horn to have a draft. They want Jimmy Horn to go in the draft. They don't want him to be an unsigned, an undrafted free agent. That's not what Colorado wants for Jimmy Horn. They want to feed Jimmy Horn. They want to put more tape out there for the NFL scouts. And so if Jimmy Horn plays, he should be the number one guy out of the slot. If he doesn't play, it'll be LeJohntay Wester.
Okay. Well, I'll be the only guy who takes a defensive guy. So you're welcome. I think Kansas's receivers are all very scary, and they're also all very tall, which actually kind of plays, I think, pretty well into CU's hands. And for that reason, I'll go out on a pretty big limb. I'll say DJ McKinney's going to get a lot of targets this game, and he's going to hold up pretty well. Nice to have a 6'2" cornerback when you play a team like Kansas. Lance Leipold loves those tall receivers. So I think McKinney's going to be on an island for a lot of this game, and I think he's going to do his job more often than not. DJ McKinney, there's my pick.
That's a good pick. Keep an eye out on roughreport.com. There might be a exclusive DJ McKinney article interview that we had coming out in the next 6 or so days. So shameless plug, keep your eye out for that. I wanted to go with LeJohntay Wester. I think that he's just going to be a monster from the slot. Jimmy was going to be my second pick. I think that the two speedsters are going to have a day. I think that Travis and Will Shepherd will probably be it's not going to be a super easy situation for them to succeed. Jake, who did you go with officially, LeJohntay or Jimmy? Because I'm going to take the other one. Or did you go with both? You're muted.
My bad. I think I don't know. I mean, it sounds like Jimmy might not play. If Jimmy doesn't play, it'll be LeJohntay. If Jimmy plays, I think they're going to force feed Jimmy. So
Okay.
kind of both.
Kind of both. I'll go fun pick. I guess I'll go fun wacky pick. I'll go Draylon Miller. I think we'll go continuing with the momentum from last week. Had a monster game against Utah. Split cover 2 like 3 or 4 times. Had some of the best completions of the day. Had that one touchdown where he dragged a guy 10 yards. He's really rounding into form. Looks like he's probably, if Jimmy isn't playing, he's for sure the 4th best receiver on the roster. They kind of have him in that Cordero Patterson kind of situation where he's working out of the backfield and lining up wide. I think it'll just be fun for him to watch him play and round into a solid player for the Buffaloes. Cool. We got a bunch of messages here. Yeah. LeJohntay, player of the game, good pick. Arden Walker, Hill Green. Those are also good picks. And yeah. Well, David, you got anything you want to plug for Rock Chalk Talk?
You can follow us at Rock Chalk Talk on Twitter, and then rockchalktalk.com. We'll have a preview and some stuff up in the next couple of days. So if you want to read things from the Kansas perspective, you can go to rockchalktalk.com and we'll be taking a look at the game from the Jayhawks perspective if you want to see that.
Yeah, and they're killing it over on that blog and on Twitter. If you want to go support our Big 12 friends over there at SB Nation, please do so. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us, David. If you want to stick around and talk about Colorado versus Utah, you're more than welcome to. But I know you probably have other stuff to do. I don't mean to keep you here.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah. I just want to set expectations. We're not going to do the same for basketball. I've seen both teams play. we don't need to preview that game.
Yeah, there's a reason we don't talk much about basketball so far at this point in the year. So.
I'm just glad that Kansas is back to a point where somebody wants to talk about Kansas football, with it actually being an intriguing matchup rather than just assuming you can, just pencil in a 30-point victory over the Jayhawks every week. At least those days are gone.
As 2 Big A brethren, I think we are 2 of the fan bases that have had those days more often than not, which just makes it so much sweeter on the other side, right, David? They don't understand what we
exactly. Yep.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Well,
awesome.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us,
you.
David. Good luck this week.
No problem. Thanks.
Oh. I didn't mean to kick you off. Thanks. We're on one this week. Sorry, guys. Sorry, David.
He said, I didn't mean to kick you out. Adds him back and then kicks him again.
And
Oh,
kicks him again.
No, he left that one. I didn't kick him again.
I'm glad that he has the same pessimistic tint on his own team. It made me feel better.
I know. Yeah. We're kind of used to this, We got you can never get too high on your team because they can never let you down.
Well, I'm just doing this for the business, okay? I know what gets the traction online, and it's the haters, especially the self-haters. So the more that I do it loudly before this Kansas game, hey, any press is good press.
It's
calculated. I mean, we'll take it. We'll take it. A Colorado versus Kansas football game is getting a lot of national television or national attention. So you know what? We live in a pretty sweet world. So this is some real sicko stuff. We want to go into Utah, or do we can talk about Carday Smith decommitting from USC too.
Yeah, I think we should touch on that.
We should. This was kind of expected. I will say that. If you
happen to know what high school he goes to?
Carrollton High School in Georgia.
I
wonder who else goes there to Carrollton High School in Georgia. Does anybody want to answer that question?
I know they're heading into the playoffs. Idea. I don't know how they got there. I know that 6A football in Georgia is a pretty big deal, but they got to have a good player somewhere to make it to the playoffs.
No, I don't think so. I think their quarterback's actually terrible.
Oh
Yeah.
man. So it's one of
Yeah.
those like option offenses.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think they might have they might actually. I don't even know if they have a quarterback. It might just be.
They just
Okay.
they just run the Wildcat.
We're
Yeah.
we're just kind of talking in circle. Let me just look up Carrollton High School quarterback.
Oh, who is it?
It's okay. It's a guy named Juju Lewis. Interesting.
First I've heard that name.
Yeah, it seems like he also recently decommitted from USC. Isn't that interesting?
It's also has he been to Boulder recently multiple times?
I think just like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, did he happen to get a burger named after him at the sink and have the whole town turn into a frenzy, and there are billboards all over the whole town and people out front of the Champion Center trying to get him to flip his commitment from USC to come play for Colorado? Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. End of bit. Not super shocking that not super shocking to me at all that Cardai Smith is decommitted from USC. Him and Juju are more or less a package deal, not a packet deal. It's a good time. I mean, I would absolutely take Cardai Smith on the offensive line. Bolster up as much as you can, and let's bully some teams in the trenches. Michael Carroll, top offensive lineman in the country, was in Boulder for that Utah game. The IMG pipeline is seemingly a very real thing. So looks like we're in for a pretty big month and a half or so for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, he's Cardai is usually pretty attached to Juju Lewis recruiting wise. If you look at some of the other tea leaves too, so I don't know which one's going to pop first, but it's a good sign where the other one's going to go too. Cardai Smith and Juju Lewis have both visited Colorado a lot, and if Cardai Smith does end up committing to Colorado, which I think is where I would put him to go, shout out Phil Loadholt. Phil Loadholt can absolutely recruit, and he continues to do so. And it seems like he can also coach too. So I hope to God we hold on to a coach for more than a year, because that'd be nice.
I know. I mean, I would love for Robert Livingston to stay too, but that's a story for another day. Think if Juju and Cardai will commit on, I think Juju and Cardai will commit on the same day. It'll be national news. It's going to be big. It'll be huge news. Bringing in Coach Phil is a dog too, but bringing in players of that caliber to Boulder as a package deal is not something that's historically happened to this program.
I don't know anything about Carrollton High School, but I think happen to know that if they do go all the way to the state championships, I think their playoffs end right before the Big 12 title game, which seems to be a really good time if they wanted to make pretty big national news, depending on who's in that Big 12 title game. So, once again, I don't know anything about this high school. I just happen to know when the football playoffs might end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty good time to be a Buffalo. Looks like we're in for a pretty monster recruiting class, high school wise. Things are stacking up. The dominoes are starting to fall. Nothing has happened officially yet, but I think the Buffaloes are in a good place to make a pretty big splash when it comes to specifically high school recruiting, which is not really something that's happened under Deion Sanders. You've obviously got the big high school recruits like Cormani McLean and Jordan Seaton, but they're not bringing in a big volume of high school players. When you lose players like Travis Hunter and the entire receiving core, other than the youngsters like Draylon and Omarion Miller, and you lose Shedeur Sanders, like you're going to have to kind of hit the reset button and rebuild through the high school ranks. And that's what Deion is seemingly doing. So we're in a great spot. No complaints. Anybody else want to add something before Utah time?
I think the Juju Lewis thing's pretty much in stone. I think if it wasn't as close to in stone as it could be without it being actually official, I think we'd probably hear more talk around the Colorado quarterback position. And we know that they have a lot of young guys on that roster, from Taylor to Ponder. I think Wade has a few years of eligibility, right? So there are some QBs on this roster that could make a difference, but I don't feel comfortable. And I forgot Staub, but I don't feel comfortable with any of those guys moving forward to win us 6 games next year. I'd feel a lot better about Juju Lewis committing. We'll have to see. And like I said, I think we'd maybe have heard more talk by now if that wasn't going to happen. So I think everyone over here thinks that's pretty much concrete.
Yeah, I mean, as without saying things, I wouldn't be super worried about it.
I think regardless, our quarterback situation will be just fine next year, even if it's no matter who it is. There's also people in the portal and pretty proven destination, I think. So
yeah, I think somebody would enter the portal, but the more interesting thing to me is we're going to have to get some wide receivers in the building next year. Who is Juju Lewis going to be throwing to, right? Our top 4 guys are going to be leaving.
About, dude?
Marion Miller and Jaylon Miller.
Time. Maybe.
It's time.
Maybe. How serious is his injury? Miller. Maybe he transfers. I mean, then what? You don't have it.
He's
Draylon Miller's
the guy.
Draylon Miller's halfway a receiver at this point. Draylon Miller's more of a running back than a receiver right now. You could look at that dude on tape. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. And he's eating a lot of mashed potatoes. You can tell from the trunk. You know what I'm saying? He's eating a lot of Big Macs in his day. Draylon Miller's a big boy. I am worried about the wide receiver position next year because if we want to have 3, 4, 5 options, 5 guys, you have to assume a Marion Miller comes back. Draylon Miller takes a big step in the right direction. And you got to hope that guys like that are already on the roster, like Timmons, he comes back better. You got to hope Cam McKell, his injury is not serious and that he doesn't transfer out. I think Cam McKell's a lock. I do think McKell will be back, but he does need to take another. He's got to take a step or 2 if he's going to get into the starting lineup. So Colorado is probably going to have to go find a big transfer and a receiver in the transfer portal as well, if you asked me.
I think the thing. Oh,
executive decision, Ryland. We're killing this segment and moving on to Utah because I don't want to see Jake Burrow any more trouble, dude. We're 8-2. We're finding a receiver. We'll be fine. I mean,
when you lose 4 receivers that all have the potential to go to the draft, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
It's Utah time. This is harshing my mellow.
It's Utah time. Okay. It's Utah time. I'll take, that's a fun game. It's always fun to see your team put up 49 points against a team that has, pardon my language, but kicked your ass the last 13 years. And you didn't even play that good of a game. That was a pretty weird game. It was pretty ugly. It was pretty sludgy offensively. Utah's defense is still very good. And they put up 49 points against a good defense. What did you guys see from that game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we saw anything new necessarily from Colorado, unless I missed something. I don't know that we saw anything new. A lot of the play calling was very much in line with what we've seen. We saw Shermer rely on the screens. That didn't work at all, but a lot of the play calling was kind of the same. We had a couple runs pop, but for the most part, the run game was sort of bottled up. I don't think that we saw anything new, but what I will say is, I think that Utah offense is just terrible. I think they're just terrible. They're just awful. And actually, Ryland and I started to feel bad for Isaac Wilson. I think near there, maybe even before halftime. It was insane. I mean, he'd get up twice a drive limping, and he'd come back onto the field, and he'd seemingly be limping on the other leg after another big hit. So for him, it was just big hit after big hit, and then that Shiloh one there at the very end of the game is what eventually did it for him. So, I think CU did what they needed to do. I think they were able to take what Utah gave them and then some, but ultimately I don't think we saw anything necessarily new. And I think a lot of that game was more of a reflection of Utah being terrible than us being a powerhouse.
Yeah, offensively, Utah's pretty tough. It's hard when you're on your 4th and 5th string quarterback. I'm shocked they kept Isaac Wilson in that game as long as they did. It's got to be detrimental to his development.
Yeah, I'm not shocked though. I think that it falls right in line with. I think Whittingham really values toughness, and you cannot say that kid's not tough. Like he was.
Oh,
was
he
getting
is.
destroyed.
He's tougher than nails to be able to. And allegedly, what he has mono. Like
It was the flu. We found out through
Okay.
Instagram posts by his mom that it was the flu. So playing that game with the flu did not seem very fun. But hey, dude, he was throwing dots in the second half to that millionth Utah tight end that's also very good. I don't understand they keep doing it, but those are like layered seam throws, and Colton Hood was right there for the second one he had that was like 30 yards. Wilson was putting it on the money. I think it was pretty easy for me to tell why Utah was the number one defense in the Big 12, especially in the first half. So he was getting frustrated on all those quick passes. Utah's defense was so organizationally sound. They just ate up those yards. Like there was no free yards for Wester to get, Hunter to get, Shepard to get. None of those people, like no one could get free because all those dudes are so solid on the perimeter, right? And I think when you saw that breakdown, they got tired because the offense just could not move the ball. And also we started to see Shedeur Sanders realize that they were spreading so far out that middle of the field, down the field was pretty open. And when you saw that in the second half, that's when Draylon Miller decided to explode. All of his big plays were straight down the middle of the field, layered throws. Again, there was some openings there. So good job to Shermer and good job to Shedeur adjusting to what Utah wasn't able to do in the second half. You could see why they were only giving up 17 points, but they didn't just give up 17 points. They started slow, Utah did, which hurt them a lot. Going down 14-3 pretty much put the game out of reach at that point. And they started clawing back a little bit, but the dam just broke. And then the last 5 minutes of that game was just CU stunting on them. Like that was just pure. We're going to have fun here, get a bunch of sacks. Let's get Travis a touchdown and let's go home.
Yeah. I mean, the Travis touchdown was fun. We could talk about Travis's day too. He had a pick, a touchdown in one of the crazier catches you'll ever see, going fully horizontal in the air, about 6 feet up. He should win the Heisman. Jack and I sat down and we talked about the current state of the Heisman race, but I think that we're probably all in consensus that this trophy belongs to Travis Hunter. Any thoughts on that?
Well, you kind of mentioned it, but I guess I'll just kind of whisper it. CU won by 25 against Utah, who beat CU by, I think, 63-21 2 years ago, which is emblematic. But did anyone think that CU played their best game? And did anyone think that Travis played his best game? Like,
nope. That
might have been one of his worst games of the year, which was a pick and touchdown at 55 yards. He gave up that long throw to Dorian Singer. Dorian Singer's first touchdown of the year, but that was also another dot by Wilson. I don't think he was as good as we've seen him, and I do think he still locked up a lot of the trophy hype. Genty can still explode, and that will make anything worrisome. But if CU keeps winning, the media pressure's on CU. Like the media spotlight's there enough, and he has enough of a lead that if CU keeps winning and he isn't hurt, I don't see a way that he doesn't win it.
Yeah, I hate to be this guy, but I will say, like, I think a lot of CU fans have gotten caught up in this, like, he plays both ways, but there's a lot of people in the national media that are also looking at, Ashton Genty's 26 touchdowns and almost, 7.5 yards per carry. And they're thinking, we've never seen this before. And Boise State's winning as well. So at this point, I think for me, go out and win the Heisman. There's 2 weeks left. Go out and win it. I think if Ashton Genty has a 3 or 4 touchdown game, goes over 30, 32, 33 touchdowns, like the conversation might change. But if Travis has another 2 or 3 touchdown day offensively, that could lock it up. And another complete performance. If Travis, let's say, has 2 offensive touchdowns and a pick, I think all of a sudden my mind stops going from being 50-50 to Travis Hunter wins it. So I think they can earn it. I think they both are right in it right now. And I think they both are going to have the opportunity to go out there and win it. So I don't think it's for sure yet.
But you're currently saying you're 50-50?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a perfect world, we'd give it to Travis Hunter and we'd say, wow, he plays both ways, but Ashton Genty has 26 touchdowns.
Do you know where that puts him all time though in a single season? I just looked it up, so I happen to know. That puts him at 22nd overall all time, right? And I don't want to make this an anti-Genty thing. I actually put that on Twitter too. I love watching Ashton Genty run the football. Like, I think the more interesting conversation, Ryland and I touched on this, is how fun it is as Genty and Hunter versus everyone else. Like, there's no quarterbacks, right? There's no Dylan Gabriel in the field anymore. There's no Cam Ward in the field anymore. This is a much more fun way to look at it, because I do think it's pretty solidified that these are the two players that are the most uniquely beneficial to their team. And Ashton Genty is uniquely beneficial to Boise State. He's a guy that you can build an entire game plan around every single week, right? So I don't want to make this an anti-Ashton Genty thing. I think I don't think he's doing a historically incredible job running the football. I think he's doing an incredible job running the football. But I think that there's been seasons like this recently as it stands right now. He can always explode, like you said. He can always explode. But I agree with you, too. We've said this the last few weeks, Jake. Like, don't you feel like there's a game that we still haven't seen Travis Hunter have the game? Like, we haven't seen Shedeur Sanders have the game yet. We've had great seasons from both, but I still feel like there's a game left in both of them where they absolutely are undeniably incredible for the entire game. I think we've seen halves. I don't think we've seen a full game where Shedeur and Travis are both undeniable.
Yeah, and I don't, that game it might not be the Kansas game. I'd love for it. I think if it was the Kansas game, I think that would mean a lot more to voters and to the national media. If it happens against Oklahoma State, I think it might be a little bit of an afterthought. Like, if we see 3 Travis Hunter touchdowns and he had like 15 receptions, like, and we were just force feeding him, like, yeah, it might not mean as much. But if Travis and Shedeur can come out and put up numbers against Kansas here in a game that we're only favored 3 points in, I think it would mean a lot. And the other thing that I think Buffs fans need to keep in mind is if this team wants to get not only, go to the conference championship, but hopefully go on and, even get a bye maybe in the college football playoff if they win that game. They probably, if they want to beat, they probably need to beat Kansas by a possession. They probably need to beat them by 7, 10. Like a 1-point field goal kick win isn't going to do enough to take us over Boise, especially not with playing Oklahoma State next week. And I think the national media is turning on BYU now too. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, if we want to be up around 10, 11, try to jump Boise State here, we might need to win by 10.
What we need Boise State to lose in that situation. I think that
that will not happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
It's
not going to happen. But yeah, I mean,
so we got to do something to set ourselves apart rather than just beating Kansas by 3 points on a field goal. Like a Mata field goal is like, oh, they won, but like a Travis Hunter 4 touchdown performance, Colorado wins by 17. Like all of a sudden, Travis Hunter's the Heisman, and you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. That's it. We're like,
yeah, I think 4 touchdowns.
That's what we need.
I would love that. I think the recent college football playoff rankings that came out kind of suck for CU, to your point. BYU being 14 hurts. I don't think they should drop that much, but that's what they are. Arizona State being at 21 also hurts, because say Arizona State beats BYU this weekend, CU is not going to be playing a marquee team if they do win out in the conference championship. Boise State's at 12 right now, and the other long shot thing that's going to happen is if Army beats Notre Dame, that's also going to be an undefeated conference champion. Hard to say that Army doesn't deserve a spot either. And in that case, CU might not make it into the champ. Like, it's not, Big 12 is not guaranteed a spot. There is no Power 4 guaranteed spot, right? It's just the top 5 ranked conference champions. So CU might just be left out in that instance. Here's the thing that I think CU has going for it. Not that there's collusion, but we're seeing this in Travis Hunter piece too. we are ratings gold. Like CU rates higher than every other team except for 4 in the country right now, right? And it is absolutely a business. You can say whatever you want. It is absolutely a business. The college football playoff absolutely considers that when they look at rankings, and I think that will come into play too. So fair or not, and it's super not fair, I do think that this is a time where it helps that CU has all eyes on them, because if it is a coin flip, like, oh, Boise State's pretty good, Colorado's 11-2 conference champion, that's going to help us win that coin flip, right?
Yeah, yep. I think they're both going to have to earn it. And with Genty, like, kind of trailing off these last few weeks, not putting up egregious numbers. You know, he's had great games, but not putting up egregious numbers. Like, for me, I was thinking it was probably like 70-30 Genty about 2-3 weeks ago. Now, to me, it's gotten really close to 50-50, and I think go out and earn it.
The betting odds are not even remotely close at this point either. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at those, Jake, but it's like Travis is like minus 350. Jack wants to
Get me in here.
Wow.
But hold on. This is actually, I think, one of the more interesting examples of this, where betting lines, I think we can use it as like how Vegas or what the models think the most likely outcome of a game is, right? Mm-hmm. This is a very specific example of maybe that being a little bit skewed, because I happen to know a little bit about some of this. I follow Circus Sports pretty frequently sometimes too. One of the biggest liabilities on these sports books, period, is Travis Hunter Heisman. Just the Travis Hunter winning the Heisman, because CU as a fan base bets pretty heavily, and they also bet pretty square, right? It's not sharp bets coming onto CU before the beginning of the season. All offseason, when CU is plus 5,000 to make the Big 12 championship and Travis Hunter is plus 3,000 to make the Heisman, because CU's fan base is so passionate and so big, people were still betting that in pretty large quantities, no matter what. So what that ends up meaning is those are both gigantic liabilities for these sports books, and to make some of that money back as CU gets more publicity and the Heisman race looks more and more like it's put in the Travis Hunter side of things, those odds are going to get skewed towards CU, because the sports books need to try to hedge that if it does end up happening. Because right now they're just losing a lot of money if CU wins the Big 12 and Travis Hunter wins the Heisman Trophy, right? So all of this to say, it's not exactly that Travis Hunter is an overwhelming favorite because the sports books say so. I would say Travis Hunter is a favorite because we have the media steam behind him and because he's incredibly good at football. And the sports books can lie a little bit with that Heisman on because of how big of a liability he is right now.
And
I mean, we've seen how bad the sports books are with Colorado. Like, keep in mind, we were 4-point underdogs going into Arizona. Like, there's a lot of narratives that go one way and the other with this team. You know, I think what Jack said, I think the amount of money that Colorado fans are willing to bet sometimes throws those lines off. So I think I'd love to hear an argument for why it would be like 8, like that, you know, that model suggests what, like a 70+% chance that Travis Hunter is going to win it. I'd love to hear that argument. Like, I know that argument exists, but I'd love to hear that argument, because you have to overlook the fact that Genty's having, like, he's probably going to go over 30 touchdowns. Like, you have to overlook that. You have to say, 30 touchdowns is nothing compared to saying both sides. You play both sides of the football. And if that's what you have to say, then I just want to hear it come out of someone's mouth. 30 touchdowns isn't impressive. Isn't as impressive as playing both sides of the ball. And it's 2024 too. We need to keep that in mind, Jack. You said Travis Hunter is, or Ashton Genty's 22nd all time. This is also 2024.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time? I can't think of a running back in the last 10 years who has had an effect on college.
Oh, Jake.
Like
CSU's Capri Bibbs, man. CSU's Capri Bibbs.
Oh, dude.
Remember Capri Bibbs?
You're going Capri Bibbs
He has 31 touchdowns. He has 31 touchdowns in the season. 2013, dude.
It's not
Jim
the
McElwain.
same. It's not the same. We know it's not the same.
32 touchdowns in 2017.
It's just we all know it's not the same.
And he's doing it in a Mountain West conference that is god awful too.
I see that argument. Once again, I don't like Andy Genty versus Hunter arguments too much because I like both of them. I love both of them as players. That argument holds less water to me because the Big 12 is not incredible.
The Big 12 is not.
Let's just be honest.
Better than the Mountain
It's not
West.
good. It is
better in the
better
Mountain West.
for
It's
sure.
significantly better, but even then,
I think the more compelling argument is that Travis Hunter is averaging 140 snaps in the last 3 games. That is
right. I agree.
unheard of, legitimately unheard of. Find me a player when we've had roster sizes past 40 that's played that many snaps. And people can say that doesn't mean anything, but it does, because he's not just playing these snaps and, as some people might say, cardio kinging. Like, he's playing these snaps and he is absolutely the best player on the field for 140 of those 140 snaps. Like, it's not that he's doing nothing. Even when he doesn't have the stats, people don't throw to him for 70 of those snaps, and he has to be accounted for 70 of those offensive snaps. That changes the way that both teams play the game in a way that we haven't seen, honestly, in the modern era. We just have not seen someone change the game like that since we've had full roster sizes. We just haven't. People don't do that.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think there's a big case for Travis. I'm sitting here on a Buffs podcast. I can't just be like it'd be so boring if I was just like, yep, Travis Hunter should win it, and then we moved on and no one talked about Ashton Genty. Like, I feel like someone needs to be the advocate.
Well, yeah, and I think the most fun way to do that is to kind of say, screw the award right now. How lucky we are to watch both of these players this year.
They both rock.
Like you said, it's not every year that we have a running back that looks like this, right? He's bouncing off of players every single play. No one can get him down. Everyone knows who's getting the ball, and it doesn't matter. And you don't see that every year, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
on the
this
other
has
side,
been college football wise. This has been an insane year. Like, I've been appreciating that recently.
We already have a Tavon Austin-esque highlight reel of just what he's done this year. Pretty much from that Washington State game alone, there's like a Tavon Austin.
Absolutely.
He's awesome. And so is Travis. We're spoiled. We are spoiled.
I think that's the more fun way to talk about it, is that, thank God we're not having to talk about, like, well, Cam Ward might win it. Like, that's not, it's so much less fun. It's
a lame. Well, if it was Milroe or Ward or anyone else, if Alabama had done better, I would hate having this conversation. Like, an SEC or a Big Ten school, versus like a skill position player, regardless of who it is. Like, I'd be miserable.
So to kind of bring it back to the Utah game, a little bit, like we said, I think Travis Hunter didn't have his best game, and I think that Shore Sanders didn't have his best game, and his team didn't have his best game, and they won by 25 against the preseason favorite for the Big 12. Utah is broken. They are broken right now. That offense is just not workable. You just cannot work with that offense. But that still says something, where CU's mediocre effort is a 25-point victory against a solid defense and a really bad offense in the Big 12. That's not something that you can say any other year since maybe 2016, but even those are rock fights, man. I was just talking about this with a friend. This game felt bad to me for a long time, and CU won like that. That puts us in pretty rarefied air. I think this team, this 24 team, is only matched by 2 other teams since the turn of the century. 2016, obviously, and we still have a little bit to go before we get to the 2016 level. That team went to the conference championship for real. And then 2001. I don't think there's any other CU team since 2000 that is put up against this, and that's really exciting. I don't know. That's really exciting. Like, they just keep putting it away.
This is undeniably a special group, and when Jake and I were walking out of the stadium, we were talking about, or at least I was. I don't remember the full conversation, but this team was bound to have like a mediocre game and lay an egg at some point down the stretch. I feel like that was coming, and I don't know. Maybe more of that is coming. I don't want to speculate on that. However, to be able to kind of play a mediocre game and still win by 25 is just monumental to just how far this program's come. It really is crazy. If you think about 2 years ago, that Utah game 2 years ago, what was the final score? 62-21?
Yeah, I think it was 63-21, yeah.
Yeah, like that's insane. And yes, Utah is not prototypical Utah, but that's still something to be proud of. Like this is something that we need to be celebrating and not taking for granted. We need to be, watching every single snap of every single football game, because it's going to be we'll never ever see a player like Travis Hunter, and we may never see a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders ever play for this team again. So it's something that we have to really get the most out of, I feel like.
Let's look on the other side too. Like this defense is fun to watch always now.
Yes.
They like strike fear, which is so fun, man. Got shaky in that second half, like we were talking about. Wilson threw that 43-yard touchdown. Those tight ends were killing us on the seam route a little bit. But in my head, I'm flashing back to that stat that Brian Howell pulled. Last two double-digit favorite conference games for CU was Oregon State at 2018. I was in the stadium for that. We all know how that ended. 35-7 into a loss, and then 6 more losses, so CU didn't go to a bowl. And then 2023 Stanford, we all know how that ended too. I think all of us might have been in the stadium for that as well. Those are the last two 10-point favorites. And then you watch Utah, you watch Shedeur Sanders just fumble the ball and Will Shepherd just forget how to hold the ball. And Utah's, driving. I'm thinking, oh my God, here it is again. Isaac Wilson has confidence. We keep turning the ball over. We're done. And then the defense changes that, right? You get pressure. DJ McKinney just walks into the easiest interception of his life. And then that's pretty much game over. Like this defense is legit. And especially up front, they're so fun to watch.
Yeah, up front especially. These last few weeks, Texas Tech and Utah both just got dismantled quarterback-wise. I mean, it was pressure after pressure after pressure. Both of those dudes aren't the most mobile in the pocket. That's the scary thing about Jalen Daniels this next week, is how mobile he is. But those dudes were both kind of more stagnant in the pocket. And my gosh, I mean, we saw 4 to 5 guys every time getting after it. I mean, you almost had to double team everybody. Everybody was winning all the time. And if we did send any sort of exotic blitzes or something, it was working. Like they were so focused on Arden Walker and Wade and BJ Green, and you can't keep up with him. And all of a sudden Shiloh comes off the edge and he's wide. He's unblocked. That kind of stuff gives me a lot of hope that this Colorado defense has figured it out. And I think Utah was a perfect example of like, we can have a mediocre game and we are such a complete team that we're still going to win by 25 points because someone made a play. And there were so many moments in that game where someone made a play. I mean, the Travis Hunter interception made no sense, but Colton Hood got the back of his head just right in the right spot to make a play. In the strip sacks and the Nakai Hill Green interception that just made, that just right when you thought, oh, Utah's got a shot here, they're building momentum, that they need a couple first downs for this game to get interesting. Big pick. I mean, so many big plays, and they happened on offense and defense. And so even if we gave up a big play, the next play out was a big play the opposite direction. So I think Buffs fans should be super proud of this team. I think they should be super optimistic going forward. And I still am going to say, I see no reason why we wouldn't. I'm more scared of Kansas than I would be BYU right now. So I feel great about the rest of the season. Sorry, Ryland. Is there anything left?
I don't think so. I think you guys killed it. The only thing that I was thinking that whole time is you didn't mention Amari McNeil, who was
that's because I don't want him to have draft stock, dude. I don't want him to leave.
Make him come back.
Let's do our part. But yeah, monster game from Amari McNeil. That was pretty much
player of the week.
Co-defensive player of the week. You should have been full defensive player of the week. That's another can of worms that we probably don't need to open. Are we good on Utah? Do we want to do best bets or Big 12 pick'em? We're really organized today. If you guys couldn't tell,
what's more fun? Would you rather pick the Big 12 games or pick some random games?
I mean,
are there
Big
good
12
random games?
See, you can clinch it.
You can clinch it this week. Let me look up Big 12 schedule.
So is that if Arizona State and Iowa State both lose?
Yes. We need the mountain schools to sweep. We need BYU to win. We need Utah to win. And we need Colorado to win.
Interesting. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible. But Isaac Wilson needs to round into form.
Do we
let me-
know?
let
Do
me
we
pull
also
up.
know who has the tiebreaker between us and BYU right now, as far as the number one team? Or let's say we both lose this week. Who has the tiebreaker between us?
BYU does because they have
Mhm.
less overall losses, I believe.
Ooh,
I believe.
that's
I
kind
don't
of
know
a
if that's true.
silly. That's
I
kind of a
can-
No,
I need to
that's
look at-
wrong. They do, but it's not
Yeah.
because of that. It's
Okay.
oh my god, what is
It might be like
Oh,
strength of schedule
no.
against common
It's-
opponents.
Yeah, it's common opponent. It's Kansas
Yeah.
State game. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we need to beat Kansas, and then it's not a problem.
All right, you have the
Okay.
schedule up, Ryland?
I do. Okay, first game, 1 p.m. on Saturday is Arizona at TCU. Line is
Gross.
TCU minus 11.5.
Whoa. Wow, that sucks, Arizona.
Yeah, I mean,
and he saved his job last week, allegedly.
Yeah, too bad for Arizona.
I know.
I think here I don't know what to say. Maybe you guys. I feel like you guys probably agree here. I think things are going to get worse before they get better for Arizona here in the next year or two. I kind of like the line. I think TCU might win by 17, 20. Arizona does not have much to play for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you
Yeah.
guys feel, but
I
I've also been the biggest Arizona hater out of anyone in in this country. So
I mean, they made like a million changes in the starting lineup before that Houston game, and I guess it kind of worked. And Fafita was doing some stuff that I hadn't seen this year. But Josh Hoover, other than Shedeur Sanders, might be the most prolific quarterback in the Big 12. He can put up yards, and Sonny Dykes knows how to put up yards. I don't trust their defense at all. I don't think TCU is a good team. It doesn't matter really. This is just a bad team against a bad team. TCU's at home. Josh Hoover has the ability to throw the ball. I don't want to pick a 12-point spread because they're both garbage, but I guess I will. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna copy you guys. I don't think there's any way in hell that Arizona wins this game. Arizona is not good. Their defense is bad and injury-ridden. Noah Fafita and Brent Brennan just do not mesh in any way, shape, or form. I think we may be in for a Savion Williams, 3 or 4 touchdown game against Arizona because he rocks. So, yeah, we'll go TCU. Second game of the day, same time as our game. Number 14, Brigham Young at number 21, Arizona State in Tempe. Line is Arizona State -3.
I'm gonna let you guys go first because I
Okay.
might play devil's advocate here if things go the way
Literally?
I think they will.
Sun Devil's Advocate. Yeah, really fun game. I think everyone's juice is on ASU because of how they've been surging at the end of this season. And BYU, of course, has been just playing with fire all year, and it's so crazy they got burnt. The way they lost that Kansas game was insane, though. The things that happened in that game were wild. You never want to play a game in the desert. That's always a terrifying place. And I do think it's going to be a real environment, which doesn't happen that often for ASU. It's going to be pretty sold out and pretty loud. All of that being said, this is a pretty bad matchup for ASU, I think. You can run the ball on BYU for sure, and Scadaboo will get his. But Jay Hill's defense is a lot like Utah's defense, and we just saw that. It is incredibly organized on the back end. There's not going to be a lot of huge chunk plays. There's not going to be a lot of times we can get quick wins on offense. And that's exactly what Dillingham, his whole scheme is quick wins on offense. So I think they're going to absolutely slow down ASU, who only scored 24 against Cincinnati and then last week did their job, but they're not crazy, I don't think. Levitt's good, but he can make mistakes, and Scadaboo's still not 100%. I trust Jay Hill. And I also think that Jake Retzlaff's going to be able to move the ball a little bit on ASU. I'm going to take BYU outright to win this game. Not just because it helps CU, but also because it super helps CU.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy you with that. I'm gonna go BYU. You mentioned that Scadavoo's gonna get his piece, and he will. And Sam Levitt is very fun, and he will make mistakes. I'm going to copy Jake when we were watching that BYU Utah game, and he called BYU's defensive backs. He refrained from using the word good, but he called them intuitive. I think that the BYU defense is going to cause some problems for ASU's pass game, in particular. And to be frank, I haven't watched a ton of ASU football. I don't really know how they stack up defensively. I'm assuming they're probably nothing crazy. I could be very wrong when I say that, and feel free to correct me if I am. But I think that BYU stacks up pretty well, and it also helps the Buffs a lot. I would much rather play BYU in a conference championship game than at Arizona State, personally.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think somehow I almost end up disagreeing with you on both ends. I think BYU scares me because their players are really well coached. You can tell. I mean, when things come up that they're not necessarily prepared for, like they're there in a snap. They make really, really big plays in big moments, and it's intuitive, and they know how to win football games. They've had a lot of, close wins down the stretch, right? So I think BYU is a great team. I don't know if I necessarily want to play them before I played Arizona State. But with that being said, I do think Arizona State's going to struggle. I completely agree with what you guys said. But what's been going on in this conference is a lot of momentum. Like teams build momentum, teams lose momentum. The momentum seems to carry over game to game so far this year. We saw once there was a chink in the armor, they fell down. So, and I worry that the same could happen with BYU down the stretch. Not to say they're not going to be a good football team, but I think it'll be close. I think Arizona State might be able to capitalize on a chance to get a big upset, which would be huge for them. Right, because then they would overtake BYU.
They control a destiny. If Arizona State wins out, they're in the conference championship game, just like us.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge for them. I think they have a ton to play for at home. We saw. I mean, look, BYU went into Utah. We saw what that environment was like, and some would argue they shouldn't have even won that game. Their offense or their athletic coordinator would argue that for sure. I wouldn't argue that. They shouldn't have been in press man coverage on 4th and 10. But anyway, besides the point, I think there's some chinks in the armor, and I think Arizona State, if anyone's going to exploit it, it might be them. So I think it'll be close, but give me Arizona State by like 3.
Okay. Next one is Texas Tech at Oklahoma State. Line is Texas Tech by 3.5 points in Stillwater. Are we all on the same page on this one?
Yep.
I mean, Oklahoma State's dead.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State's going to win and cover. Do we need to go around the circle on this? Because I feel like no, that's a waste of time.
They're dead.
Okay. Next game is UCF at West Virginia. Line is UCF -3.
These are gross.
I know this is an awful week. This is an awful week, and it only gets worse.
Yeah. I'll start off and I'll keep it short. I think I like UCF here. They have some momentum. I think they're getting really good play from a couple different quarterbacks. RJ Harvey still looks good right these last few weeks. I think that line is about right. But I have a lot of faith in what UCF is kind of building over there, and I think UCF could definitely pull that out. So UCF to cover for sure. I don't know if they win. Maybe can I pick a draw? Those teams are pretty.
There's going to be 2 pass attempts. There's going to be 0 passing in that game. Yeah. Oh God,
that's awful.
Where is it?
Watch that game.
It's in Morgantown.
It's in Morgantown.
I guess I'll pick West Virginia. I don't even know.
Neil
Brown's just going to keep his job. He's gonna pick up wins, and he's going to keep his job.
Neil Breezy is dead to me. He's dead to me.
Ugh.
As a secret West Virginia fan. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll just say UCF. Garrett Green's playing, but Garrett Green is a non-factor in like every single game they've played.
Yeah.
So
let's just keep going, Ryland. This is depressing me. That's making me sad.
Baylor at Houston. I told you it's not getting any better.
All right.
Houston makes things kind of interesting.
What's
Houston
the line?
is a fun team.
I'm gonna guess
8
Baylor
points.
-9 is the line. What is it?
8.
It's Baylor -8. That's what it is on ESPN.
Sawyer Robertson gang, dude. I'm a big Sawyer Robertson guy.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Give me Baylor -8.
Me too. Sawyer Robinson rocks, and that wide receiver core is really fun.
I remember
don't know enough about Houston football to make an informed pick.
Yeah. Before that Baylor game, I remember watching DeQuan Finn and watching Sawyer Robertson, and everyone was like, God, I hope DeQuan Finn plays. And I was like, guys, no. Like, I promise you Sawyer Robertson's going to play, and he's going to be good. I need to go back and read that preview that I wrote, because I think in hindsight, I'd be like, whoa, I had 10,000 IQ to make that call. But in reality, Sawyer Robertson, it's not hard to see. He's good at football. And I think he might go to a big school next year.
Wow. Shots, I guess, and you're shot across Baylor's bow. The team that famously had the shirts that said "We pay players" in the preseason. I think he's
that Texas soil money. That Texas soil money. They can if they want to keep Joanna.
Dog is that shiplap money.
Yeah.
That's gross game though. Also,
yeah.
And I watched too much Houston. I watched Houston, Arizona a little bit last week. Also cannot throw the ball. Willie Fritz doing miracle work, getting them anywhere near bowl eligible, but it is tough to watch sometimes. So let's go Baylor.
Iowa State at Utah. Iowa State -7.5 points.
Iowa State -7.5 would be what I would take in this game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isaac Wilson experience is
they have even
beautiful.
less to play for now.
Yep. And it's not, but it's not even Wilson's fault, dude. Like, I feel like he was not the problem. They're playing a weird scheme. There's no one for him to throw the ball to. Like, Singer's okay. Bernard was hurt, but he was okay. They just don't have it together. And it's rough to watch. The defense can hold and it just breaks. Rocco Beck can do enough to make Iowa State break that deep.
Yeah, Kyle Whittingham needs to keep his job. That's probably the biggest.
I think he's gonna retire.
Yeah,
retire. Okay.
Yeah,
he's 65, man.
Yeah, I could see it. Last game of the week: Cincinnati at K-State on ESPN2. This is a more fun one. K-State -9. Wow, Vegas really likes K-State.
Okay. Not Cincinnati believers.
No, that's interesting.
That would be nice if K-State can stick around the rankings.
Yeah, I don't
9
know.
seems so high though.
Yeah, I think K-State wins, but Cincy covers. I think there's going to be some Avery Johnson tomfoolery, some of the ugliest turnovers. That happens every week. That's not a bold take.
What about like a gross 24-17 game where Cincinnati gets like 10 points out of turnovers and just doesn't move the ball after that?
Yeah, that's more or less what I'm envisioning. Those defensive backs. Cincinnati's defense is it's had its ups and downs, we'll say, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. Kansas
that
State
9-point line seems like a lot.
It's a good pick.
Cool. I think that's it for Big 12 action. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Nope.
All right, guys. Well, good episode. We'll be providing plenty of content in the run-up to the Kansas game. Be on the lookout on roughyourpork.com. Can I get a Sco Buffs? Hell yeah. Sco Buffs. Hell yeah. We'll be on the lookout for Jake's preview, and we'll be cranking out content. And yeah, Sco Buffs. Let's beat the Jayhawks.